Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our members of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position, along with your favorite beverage, to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine our show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion today, we want to say thanks for questions coming from our audience at SmithWeekly, including Jared W., Gordon S., Paul M., and Mike P. On the program today is a new guest. Mr. Alex Klenman has joined us. Alex is the CEO and director of Tisdale Clean Energy, an Athabasca Basin focused uranium exploration company that is focusing on advancing the South Falcon East uranium project, which is being optioned from Skyharbour Resources. Tisdale Clean Energy is listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol TCEC, as well as on the US OTC markets under the symbol TCEFF. Alex, welcome to the program.
Andrew, thanks so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Alex, it's good to have you on. And as this is an introduction program, just for some of the audience who probably doesn't know who you are, why don't we start off here with you just talking to our audience about your background and experience in this junior natural resource sector?
Yes, I would love to do that. So I have been around for a while. I've run multiple companies. I've been involved with many more. We're going back about 30 years. I actually cut my teeth in the capital markets. I hate to date myself, but it would have been around the dot-com era. Got into more of the resource-based sectors in the right around 2008, 2009. And I found myself specifically in uranium in 2017, although I guess 2010 was my real first exposure to the uranium sector, and that would have been through I did a private placement with a person named Bill Sheriff, who your audience may have a familiarity with. It was a company called Tigris Uranium, and then I watched everything happen pre-Fukushima and the remarkable run that we had at that point. And I was hooked. I mean, I remember 2008 to a little bit and what was happening in 07, 08, but certainly 2011, 2010, 11, and into 12 was really where things peaked for me. And then when I had the opportunity in 2017 to get involved with the uranium company, I did, and that company is called Athabasca Basin Energy. It's an explorer on the western side of the basin. It was also an earn-in JV with Skyharbour, as you mentioned. Tisdale's do the same thing. I know the supply-demand situation, and I just think it's one of these places you want to be. I'm very much, I've been drinking the uranium Kool-Aid, so to speak. So that's my history. I'm a capital markets guy. I'm a workaholic, and I love the action. I like it better in a bull than I do a bear, but here we are.
What do you think, just adding to that, what do you think really attracted you to just not necessarily uranium, but the junior natural resource sector? What attracted you and what keeps you here?
Well, I'm on the exploration side, and it's the highest risk category that we have in this business. But it's it's almost like treasure hunting. There's a lot of excitement when you hit a drill hole or you find evidence of what it is that you seek. And that's the rush in exploration. You have, the excitement of the chase, the thrill of the kill. And there's just something about it. When you have really buoyant markets, there's nothing else like it. I mean, we know that the producers are the steady eddies, and their values often mirror the commodity value. But you can see what happens upon discovery. I was with a company called Rocks Gold, and we made a discovery in West Africa that was, remarkable at the time. It's turned out to be one of the highest grade mines on the African continent. But at the time, I mean, I'll never forget that the message from Burkina Faso on the hole that was hit, and the grainy fax picture that came in, and that's seems like 100 years ago. But it's a great place to be, and it's not for everybody. But I've been here steadily now for some time. So enjoy that part of it, the rush of the thrill of the kill and the rush of the chase.
It certainly has some characteristics of treasure hunting. And of course, I guess in this case, treasure hunting plus, if you can do reasonably well, you can also get paid in the process while you work on that treasure. So that's always a
Hmm.
added benefit, I suppose, as well. Alex, just talk briefly here. And again, we don't have to beat the thesis to death because we talked about it for 7 years, blue in the face about it. So, but just give us maybe just a quick shot of how you look at the uranium market today from your position as a junior CEO.
Hmm. Now it's been a like you mentioned, it's been a strange run. I mean, back around 2016, 2017, 2018, we knew where this was going. Everybody was talking about it. The data was strong in terms of how many reactors were coming online, were in the queue, were in the planning stages. We knew where the commodity price was didn't make sense in terms of to meet the demand of the new reactors and the new demand. The spot price was not allowing a lot of existing resources, existing deposits to be really developed. And if you just looked at the data, and the data was coming from lots of much smarter people than myself, and I bought into that. You could see that. The thing was, we knew the rubber band was going to snap. We just didn't know when, and it kept going. Every time we'd start to break out, it would be sort of a false run or a false move. And it became, we lost a lot of people along the way because you talk to people that get excited about the thesis, as you mentioned, and then a year goes by and spot's 22 or spot's 24 or it's peeled back or whatever the number was, and that's been it's been a slog. I mean, when I was raising money for Asimcourt in 2017, 2018, 2019, even the doors would politely slam in your face, and then gradually things changed, and I think right around middle of 2020, we had a lot of excitement, and you could see the market caps just pop up overnight. Sentiment came into the sector. Now, here's the thing, and I often go on about this with people. The commodity price is fantastic, and it really is the driver behind buoyant and strong markets and market moves. But if you don't have sentiment, that commodity price it can be irrelevant. There's a disconnect between sentiment, i.e., funds and cash flowing into the market and liquidity and volumes. And there's a disconnection between that and the commodity price. We've seen it with gold, for example. And so we need that sentiment. We need that support that comes with a strong commodity price. And again, I think 2020, if you look at the charts of August in particular, of uranium juniors, you'll see what happens when the wind is strong and the sails are deployed, and you can see what happens. We're sort of waiting for that. We've been waiting for that for some time. We've had these sort of false moves, but this one feels different. And I think all of the people that I talk to and listen to are really pointing towards 2024 as being a critical point in this. And it's come later than I would have believed in 2017 or 2018. But I think it's undeniable. And again, we get into long-term contracts from the U.S. utilities. We get into production. We get into new supply coming online. These are all important things, and it points in the right direction for the sector, for the majors, for the mid-tiers, and for the juniors, because we're often the last to move, and we lag. The juniors tend to lag behind the majors. And you look at the ETFs and you look at Cameco, for example, those charts are quite strong. So I think it's just a matter of time before the juniors and the mid-tiers really start to pick it up.
Alex, I agree with that, and don't mind a bit of a delay at this point. We've had so many of them. We're used to those delays, as you and I both know. But
Mhm.
yeah, it'd be nice to see this finish off. I mean, we've already been right. You and I both were talking about this at $18. It's hard enough to get that correct, and things will certainly pick up. And I think there's just broad market fears here that continue, and
Right,
we
and
may have some challenges yet to come.
no, and I think you're right, and I think that's a good point. I want to just elaborate a little bit on that, because one of the issues here is if we had done 75, 80, $85 spot in if we had hit that in say 2019 or 2020, the reaction would have been much different. But you mentioned broad market fears. There are a lot of other components sort of working against that sentiment, and that is muting the response that we're seeing to a very robust spot price. So again, I think as these things work themselves out, I also think you can't keep a cork underwater. So at some point, we know that things are going to change. I just don't think that, I think the broad market fears are going to dissipate a little bit, specifically in this sector. It's always been a niche sector anyway. So, we just need a little bit of an expansion from the diehards that have been here all along. And we know that there's money on the sidelines. We know there are a lot of funds that cannot deploy because of liquidity issues. But those funds, their money's going to have to go to work at some point. And we know, because we've seen it before, that that's a self-imposed restriction in terms of the funds, and they can relax, modify, and otherwise change the thresholds and criteria they use for investment. And that's another factor that we should look at coming into 24. I think we're going to see perhaps some reduction in some of those restrictions, and capital should flow.
Yeah, it should be some good times for the sector. Maybe not some good times in other sectors, but we should have some good stuff coming here, as you said. And then also just some of these are limited, whether still at discounts. Some of these, physical funds struggling to get off the runway here and get up in the air, and new ones, same condition. We've seen a lot of handicapped struggle to get what they wanted to do done really over the last year. So we should see all that start to get solved next year. So we'll see how that goes. And let's get right into Tisdale Clean Energy here. Recent news, the company is conducting an equity financing. Talk about that in terms of use of proceeds, and then we'll get into capital structure in a moment.
Yeah, well, we need to fund the company. So I've been involved with Tisdale since 2019. I was actually in New York raising money for Asimcourt at the time, another uranium deal, and I got a call. There was an opening in a company build. I had a contact that we knew one another through a lawyer in Vancouver. So I jumped on board. It took a while to get it to where it's at today. We picked up a project, an option project through Skyharbour, who have a great relationship with Jordan Trimble, and I go back a ways. And so we cut the deal. And over 23 here, it's been quite a journey, but we're at the point now where, look, we need to get the drills in the ground in 2024. I'm raising a little hard and flow at the moment. We want to get into the drilling in Q1. So I'm in the process of funding that and really just building the company out. We have not marketed the company. We've been really under the radar. And anybody who knows me, I'm a marketer. I think it's really important that you create awareness and you let people know who you are. Old school advertising is I think, a tried and true methodology. We're not interested in promoting the company, more so just letting people know, we're here and here's an opportunity to be involved with a small market cap that is developing an actual asset. And so that's really the impetus behind the financings at the moment. Get the money to drill and get the money to market the company in 2024.
Talk just briefly about the terms of the placements, just in case there's someone in the audience that may take interest, or just overall terms so everybody understands.
Yeah, we're doing a 2-year warrant at 30 cents and a unit price at 18 cents. That's the hard dollar offering for Tisdale. We're about halfway through the 1.2 million. We have expressions of interest really to fill the whole thing, but it's December 13th today. It's not the best time of year to raise money, but here we are. So I'm going to close a tranche, I think, in the next week or so, probably certainly before the 20th, 22nd. And I'll keep it open into the new year if I need to get to the 1.2. And then we're doing a 22 cent warrant, or 22 cent unit, pardon me, with a 36 half warrant on the flow through side. Again, that's drill money. That money will go directly into late winter, spring drill program at South Falcon. And I'm happy to get into some of the details about the project here momentarily.
Yes, let's get to that in just a moment. So with the capital structure here, just talk about what you anticipate the pro forma post-capital raise capital structure will be in terms of shares outstanding, Alex, the cash on hand, and then also, if you will, the major shareholders, including yourself.
Yeah, well, we're going to be somewhere in the 25 to 30 million shares outstanding range, depending on how successful the raises are. And then from there, really, right now there are some, retail holders who have good positions and are strong supporters of the deal. My goal over the next year and certainly into 2025 is to make this company and the project. I think the project speaks for itself, but certainly the company needs institutional support. And at this market cap, our liquidity is good, but we certainly don't have the market cap. Again, I mentioned thresholds and criteria. The funds have to work with those in terms of these small market caps like Tisdale. So I need to grow the company to the point where it's attractive and easy for institutional money to flow. I think the development of a deposit is exactly what the funds like to see. And so, I'm confident and hopeful that I can get that done here over the next 12 months.
Okay, so let's move on here to it'd be helpful to know some of the folks over there helping you out. Why don't you just talk about some of the people at the company and what they bring to the table?
Yeah, well, what's funny here is people have these ideas that I get this a lot. We're often very small companies. I mean, we're really just talking about an active board, myself and our consulting geologist. And I guess he's the most important guy here. I mean, I raise money, I market the company, but the nuts and bolts of the development of this deposit, this asset, is really going to fall to him. His name is Trevor Perkins. I've worked with him at Azincourt. Trevor is a long-time uranium-specific geologist, and I think that's worth mentioning. So, you mentioned the bear. We know that there was a long bear market in this sector, and that lasted 10, 12 years. And one of the sort of byproducts of that extended period is a lot of the uranium-specific geologists, those that work in the basin, those that understand how to explore and develop uranium in the ground, they aged out, and we ended up with far less of these types of geologists than we would have had in 2010, 11. So, and there hasn't been a massive rush yet to replace them, and I think that it has a lot to do with the fact there was very little capital and very, very little sentiment and love for the sector in itself. So right now there's with the junior game, when a commodity price escalates, suddenly there's 100 or 200 more public companies devoted to that commodity, the exploration therein, and so forth. And that happens. The market grows, and then the market, when we turn the other way, the nature has a way of culling the herd. So we're in one of those cycles now where we're seeing a lot more uranium companies pop up because of the commodity price. One of the issues that these companies are going to have is finding appropriate geologists who know how to chase, alteration, know how to work with conductive packages. It's not that simple. So we're happy. Obviously, Trevor knows his business. He's worked for UEX. He's worked for Cameco. He led the team that made the MacArthur River North discovery, which is 110 million pounds. He knows he's made multiple discoveries as the lead geologist in his career. So I'm really happy. He's based in Saskatoon. He knows the basin. He knows everybody there. He's worked with a lot of companies and a lot of people. So he's leading the charge. And again, I think it's really important that you have a geologist that has a good history of discovery, a good history of development, and certainly understands uranium exploration in the basin.
It's good to keep it tight, small group, and have some experience there. And hopefully you guys, with the single property you do have, with plans maybe to get some other properties, there can be some good advancement on South Falcon East. Let's talk about that project now. You're planning an exploration program that's coming up. Talk about where this project is in the basin so people have an orientation of east side, west side, what have you. And then also talk about the plan specifically, including the timing of the program, and then how the drill targets were selected.
Perfect. Yeah, great question. So we're in the southeastern portion of the basin, just on the perimeter outside of the basin itself, which is important. Obviously the Wollaston corridor has been where all the production and the major discoveries have happened. Now, there have been other discoveries outside of that, particularly in the last 10 years. The perimeter of the basin is really a great target. We know, we don't have the overburden to drill through. We have shallower targets, which makes it a much more economic situation for juniors. The model is working. We're seeing it on the west side. F3 made their discovery last year, or pardon me, earlier this year. And we know that this is a good place to be in terms of that. And technology's changed. There's been an increase in knowledge and technological developments that have begun to yield more, significant discoveries on the perimeter. And we're happy to sort of have found this project. I love the idea of jumping straight into the development of an asset as opposed to exploration. I've been in exploration, as I mentioned, for a long time. You get used to it, but there's your batting average in exploration is I don't know if your audience are baseball fans or not, but there's something called the Mendoza line where it's sort of the line of futility, if you will, and that's a batting average of 200. So you're successful 2 out of 10 times. That's sort of what we see in exploration, if that. And so I really jumped at the opportunity here to sort of move Tisdale forward because it's certainly intriguing to be able to go right to a known resource, as small and low grade as it might be. But the upside is clear. We're going to have an asset that's going to back the company over the next few years, and that to me is a very attractive situation. So as mentioned, we're on the southeast portion of the basin, just on the perimeter. It's about a little over 12,000 hectare project within a larger package of projects that are held by Skyharbour, and their Rio Tinto JV is just northeast of us or northwest of us by a few clicks. And we have, as mentioned, there's a 7 million pound deposit. It's not massive, obviously, it's small considering. And it's about 0.03 to 0.04 average grade. There's also a thorium deposit on site. Now, again, it's not super high grade when you look at what the basin is capable of delivering, but certainly on a world average, it's very strong, and that's important when you look at that. But the idea of being able to develop something here and maybe increase the size and grade is very intriguing. It's very compelling. We know in 2015, for example, that the last holes that Skyharbour drilled really were the best in terms of grade. 0.172 was hit over 2.5 meters. Now that's a nice little run there, and we're all in agreement that if we go deeper, we're probably going to get more love on the grade side. But we also believe that this development can work on a more horizontal orientation, more like a string of pearls. And so we're going to work that as well. We intend to get into some of the known mineralized areas, maybe twin some holes. One of the things we need to do over time here is bring this deposit into compliance. It's a historical resource. It's inferred. So we'd like to, obviously make some inroads on that, bring it up to speed, bring it up compliance now. But we do believe, and everybody involved with the project, and that includes the Skyharbour geologists and the Skyharbour management and ourselves, we all believe that this thing can be bigger and the grade can be improved. So that's the long-term goal. But the next drill program that we're going to get into, and we're hoping to do that in February of 24, is to get in, twin some of the holes that were done by Skyharbour, reestablish that the mineralization's there, let the market know that yes, indeed, this is a solid deposit, and that we're going to be able to do some work on it. But I think that's really intriguing in terms of a goal for the company. I don't think we're going to do any step outs in that first round. Again, this is going to be Trevor's plan and where he wants to go with it. He is working with Skyharbour's geologists, and we're looking at those targets. Now we know there are other target zones on the property. They have been established through Skyharbour's work, so we're going to be looking at those, evaluating those as well. But we're going to take baby steps here in 24, get the thing rolling, get the company known, begin to get the work done, and set us up for a nice 3 or 4 year run.
With this, and I want to come to the option terms in a moment, but in your mind, what do you see as the ideal minimum for discovery in the basin? Locations dependent, obviously, but what do you see like the minimum size to really get people excited about a discovery there in terms of just 50 million pounds, 25 million pounds, what have you? Yeah. Obviously, we know the grades are good.
That's a tough question because it's very speculative. We do believe that this thing can grow, and it can grow sizably. I'm reticent to throw out numbers. I don't know if I'm compliant in doing so. but also we just need to see where this goes. All of this, there's structure, there is evidence, there's geological positives that are all indicating to us that we think this can grow and grow significantly. We know, and in talking to Skyharbour, if Russell Lake and Moore weren't on their project list, that this would be their number one project. And I think that's also reflected in the terms, which obviously we'll get into. I've heard this directly from Jordan that this would be where they would be working. So they wouldn't be doing it if they thought this was if the 7 million pounds was a capped resource. We think it can grow. They think it can grow, and that's at the end of the day where we need to be. Again, having a decent sized deposit, and you mentioned 50 million pounds, that would be fantastic. But anything beyond where we're at, I think, again, if we get into $100, $120 spot, or where people think this might be in 24 and into 25, the value of that's going to grow immensely, and it will not be ignored. These are shallow targets, 170, 175 meters, where the mineralization is. That is relatively shallow, considering where some of the targets in the basin might be. So, over time, I think that value, again, even let's say it's a 20 million, let's say it's a 7 million, let's say things go, we don't improve the grade and size, and it's only a 7 million pound deposit. It's in the right neighborhood. Someone will take an interest in it. Those pounds back evaluations, when larger companies want to add pounds to their bottom line, they're going to look for smaller deposits that can come online or be added to their inventory. So, again, I'm not suggesting we can't grow it, but you always have to think about worst case scenarios. If you plan for worst case, everything else seems to be a much better road. So again, I think it's going to be expanded. We know the grade gets better at depth. We're just going to continue to work it in a methodical, smart way where we can grow the asset over time, and growing that asset is going to directly relate to the growing of the market cap of Tisdale.
Looking forward to seeing some of those results and seeing you guys get on the ground there and putting a few holes down. That would be good to see. So, Alex, on the option terms, this is a multi-year option with
Yeah.
Skyharbour. Talk about some of the commitments, what you see as some of the milestones for completion of that earn-in, and just go over those details for us.
Yeah, we have a path to 75%, and I think some of the numbers at first glance may spook people or may make them take a double take. I think over time, we're talking about $10 million in expenditures and about $10 million in cash and share payments to Skyharbour. Now, I have to preface this with my Azincourt experience. Azincourt is developing a large project on the western side of the basin, but we haven't hit the big drill hole yet. We're close, technically speaking, i.e. we're running into alteration zones and relevant clays. These are all really important, critical factors, and we're doing that. But the message here, or the lesson, is in 2018, 2019, I couldn't get a dime into that company. And then suddenly around 2020, everything changed. And I was able to raise about $15 to $18 million. All of it from large institutional funds. If you had sort of told me in 2017, 2018 that I would have been able to do that, that any small junior without a large drill hole or mineralized hole of any type would be able to attract that type of capital, I would have said thanks, but I don't know what you're drinking. But that actually played out, and that actually happened. It's one of the reasons why the terms of the option agreement didn't scare me. I mean, I was able to exceed the numbers in the Tisdale option agreement without a deposit, without mineralization. So I think, again, where spots at, where the funds are, where I think 24 is going to play out, I think I can raise the money and get this thing done over the next 3 or 4 years. The next milestone payment is in the summer of 24. It's about 450,000 cash and 1 million shares to Skyharbour. I can reduce the amount of shares with more cash, but basically that's what's next up. We have to spend about 1.2 million, 1.25 million before the 18-month anniversary, which again is coming up in June of 24, and I think we can do that. I have lots of expressions of interest to raise that money. I'm certainly open to listening to any sophisticated investors who might want to back the company in that regard. We know where the money's going. It's going in the ground. Again, the payments escalate over time. But again, I'm going to take it 1 year at a time. If I think it's a gamble that I had to take, and in terms of taking on such a, having such a small company take on such a large commitment, it's the ability to develop a deposit, which, how many of those are out there? I don't know, and I certainly don't know how many small market caps, sub 5 million market caps, can point to the fact that they can earn the majority interest in a deposit, and with a partner like Skyharbour, who I have a ton of respect for. They've really done a great job. Jordan's done an amazing job over time, built a great company. And so, we've got really good partners. We're in the right place on the eastern side there. There's some great companies in and around where we're at. So I think that, the story's fantastic. It's just a question of now getting it out there, raising the money, and getting to work. And that's what we do. I mean, that's what I've been doing now for a couple of decades. So I'm looking forward to this. This one really excites me.
Yeah, I think there'll be some flexibility. Of course, you guys have a good relationship, and if you can demonstrate progress on the project, I think there'll be flexibility should conditions be unfavorable, although I don't fully see that they would be in that case, but we'll see what happens. With respect to other projects, do you guys anticipate trying to look for some other projects to add to the portfolio, or do you guys want to stay with single project at this point?
Good question, because I've never been a person who believes in one horse portfolio. I think I always use the analogy of if you have two cars in the driveway and one doesn't start, you always have the second car. So I think over time, there's projects. We look at them. We're always looking at them. Trevor has a fantastic pipeline to projects. So, we are open to adding another project. I certainly don't want to add something that's going to add to our financial obligations with what we have on the plate with South Falcon. But I do think it's important that over time we do add a project or two, and they may be more on the exploration side, but certainly something that gives us a secondary project, maybe something that we can work on a secondary basis, obviously. And it's a hedge that if nothing positive develops out of South Falcon, which no one actually believes at this point, but Mother Nature has a great way of throwing curveballs, so you got to be always aware of that. So I think it's important, and I do think it's smart for us to have a second or even a third project in the portfolio. That may even help us down the line in terms of capital structure. That may again help us. We need to get. Right now, we have 16 million, 18 million shares out. There's 18 million. We've had some warrant exercises. So at 18 million shares out, we're still relatively tight. And that's great for some people. But I'm not one that always was attracted to these super tight deals because, A, I don't think your market cap is accurate. There's too many factors. There's too tight for that to happen. You have to get out there. You have to have your stock, trading, and you have to have, it widely distributed to really get a handle on a proper market evaluation. So we need to get there over the next couple of years, and I don't know what that number might be, but somewhere between 30 and 60 million shares out, trading at a decent share price. There's where you're going to get your institutional support. And again, that's important here. I'm not afraid of larger cap structures. You certainly have seen it and do see it in the uranium space with any company that actually has been a uranium company for the last 10 years. A lot of the financings that were done during the bear were done at dirt cheap prices, and there was a lot of capital structures that were sort of blown up and diluted. But that was the nature of the beast with $20 spot. And so now it's a little different, but I do think you need to find that sort of happy medium where you're tradable, you're liquid enough to have that institutional support. So I think that those are important factors moving forward for Tisdale.
Well, to wrap up here, Alex, I'll take any final comments with this. For potential investors who are listening in, the company has a market capitalization of about 3 million Canadian dollars. Why should Tisdale Clean Energy be considered within the retail, institutional, family office investors portfolio?
And I think it's pretty simple. I mean, as mentioned, it really is ground floor. This is the cheapest the stock has been since I've been involved in the company, and there are reasons for that. I'm happy to have those discussions with people. But here we are, and the going directly into the development of a deposit. Right now, we're getting 25 cents a pound credit in the ground for that, and maybe rightly so. We haven't earned an interest yet in the project. We begin that process in 2024. We haven't marketed the company, so there's very little actual organic support, if you will. I think that'll grow in 24, and that 25 cents pound in the ground credit can easily grow. And I can see it being at $1 or $2 a pound within a very short period of time. We know that the market likes to pay in advance. I always go back to, a gold company that hits a big drill hole in a discovery hole, for example. You're going to see the market cap move to an area that the market feels the company will be worth a year and a half down the line. And I think, we can see the same type of thing happen here with us, with a little bit of an awareness, a little bit of work in the ground, the beginning of that earn in, and awareness that the company exists with the ability to create value through the development of this deposit will change the current evaluation. Right now, again, as mentioned, 25 cents a pound in the ground seems incredibly cheap. It may be accurate. I don't know. But certainly, I could see $1 in the ground within the next 6 months or so being a very reasonable expectation. And again, a little luck, a little love in the ground, the development of that asset, bringing it to compliance over the next couple of years. And if we get $120 spot, who knows what the evaluation might be. We've seen it grow. I mentioned what happened in 2020 in August of it might have been 2021 or August of 2020. But you look back at those charts and you can see what happened when sentiment flew into the market and all of a sudden the juniors just doubled, tripled overnight. I think a combination of that, the development of the asset and awareness in the company will certainly have us see some growth in 2024. So in terms of investment, I think that's what you look for. It's de-risked to a certain degree. Obviously, we're not hoping we find something. We know that there's something there. How big can it be? How high can the grade be? That's the risk. But again, it's certainly a great place to start. And at the price we're at, I think it's attractive for sure.
Alex, I think it's a good start, so I appreciate that. Last thing here, what's the best way for folks to reach out to the company or to yourself?
Yeah, very easily. Done by email, info@tisdalecleanenergy.com. My phone number's on most of the press releases. If people want to call me directly, they can do so. I do speak directly with investors on a daily basis. I'm very accessible. I don't have an IR person who takes my calls. I don't have a secretary. Again, we run very lean and mean. So happy to take those calls from people directly. And it's really easy to get a hold of us. Again, this placement is open right now. We do intend to close a tranche here in the short term. If anybody would like to get involved with that, please email me as quickly as possible. I'll get you all the relevant documents that you need. And again, go into the new year looking to continue to raise money. We're always going to be raising money here, especially with what's around the corner and what we have to do. Again, so there's lots of opportunities, but certainly right now seems to be it's priced right. So maybe add something to your Christmas shopping list by giving me a call.
Well, look, I appreciate it. Thanks for the introduction and the time today. Looking forward to following the progress of this company. Keep up the progress there, Alex, and we hope you'll come back again soon.
I appreciate it, Andrew. Thanks for having me. I know we're like the little company that's trying to do big things, but happy that your audience has been introduced to us, and I'm certainly happy to develop a relationship with anyone listening. And I encourage people to give me a call. Thank you so much.